In today's tutorial, I will teach you how to master Excel control structures from the ground up, and we will apply them in a real-world payroll automation project. We go from ground up, from the basics to building the application. However, before we get started, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you do not miss any part of the series. Now let's get into the basics. Control structures. Control structures are important for decision making and automating logic in your program. And within the control structures, we have the if then, else if, and else tells the program if a condition that has been set is true, do something. Else if another condition, if the first condition is not true, do something based on this another condition. Then the else tells the program if none of the conditions that have been set is true, then execute a default block which will be set. The select case statement is more elegant. It provides a cleaner alternative to having multiple if-else-if statements. Right. The select case evaluates a single expression and executes code based on matching cases, just as multiple if-else-if statements. And the last part of the control structures we have for loops, do while, and for each. For loops will help you go through a repeated operation a given number of times. Do while repeats the operation as long as the condition is true. If the set condition turns false, the program stops. Right. And then the for each loops through collections like all worksheets or all cells in a range. Now the project setup. We have a table containing employee ID, name, hours worked, hourly rate, score. And our task is to write an Excel VBA macro that calculates gross pay, apply tax deductions, give bonuses based on performance, calculates net pay, handles missing or invalid data, and optionally give remarks using control structures. Here are the basic steps we will need to create this program. Let's give a title for the macro, sub payroll. Now we are taking this to the end of the steps. Right. Now let's declare the various input and output variables we will be needing for this program. In our previous lessons, I've shown us how to declare variables. Here are the necessary variables we will be needing for this program. We may encounter other ones as we proceed. We will need the last row. We will need the loop counter, hours worked, rate, hourly rate, score, gross pay, net pay, tax rate. We covered data types in previous lessons. If you've not seen, do well to see that. Double refers to decimals, right? Long refers to integers that are far above 32,000. Right. So let's go to referencing the target worksheet. The target worksheet here is the payroll. And since this is going to be a repeated operation, instead of repeating that particular sheet, let's use the with statement to avoid repetition. With sheets referencing the particular worksheet we're looking at, which is payroll. Right. The next is to tell the program to know the last row in our table. So we call this last row, and then we assign it using cells into rows dot count and column A. Go up to the first non-empty cell and get the row number. This serves as the last row in our table. Right. We will be using it as we continue. Our next step is to use the control structure to instruct the program to go through the table from the second row, right? That is just after the table header to the last row. We call the for loop. We say for the counter, loop counter equals second row to the last row. Right. Now the next is to read inputs. The inputs for this, we're looking at hours worked, hourly rate, and score. So we want to tell the program where to find these inputs. First is hours worked. And if we go back to our table let's go back to the table. Hours worked is found in this. This is the third column, right? So use cells, a counter, and then we specify the column dot value, right? We go for rate cells and row counter, the fourth column, use the values. And then lastly, we take up score cells, and this is found in the fifth column. Then we tell the program to use the values there. All right. In this step, we're telling the program to validate the input. That is, go to hours worked, rate, and score. Check each of the cells. If there are missing values, right, or any missing data, then the program should go to net pay and in the corresponding cell and say missing data and go to remark and say incomplete data. That is what the input validation is about. So we're going to use the if statement that we talked about, if then. So we'll say if is empty, hours worked. If hours worked is empty, or rate is empty, or score is empty, then the program should go to the corresponding cells in net pay. So net pay is in column. Let's check the column that we have net pay. Net pay is in the eighth column, right? So we call that cells row number and the eighth column dot value. Value to be set here is missing data in that particular cell, right? And then similarly, instruct the program to go to bonus, the bonus column, which we see in column 9, and set the value as incomplete record. You remember we did open a for loop. We need to make a statement as go to continue loop and finally end if, right? This should be letter n rather. Now we calculate the gross pay. Remember, gross pay is hours worked multiplied by hourly rate, or gross pay. We've calculated the gross pay, but let's set the cell that it should be found in. So we call cells. Gross pay is found in column 6 and we set the value as gross pay. The next step is to apply the tax bracket. Now, if in your particular case, you do not need different tax brackets, you just have a flat tax, you'll just apply it once. But here we'll need to use the if else if statement. Right, so we're looking at those who earn above $1,000 particular tax rate, those at 800 and above, 15%, and anything below that, 10%. Right, so we say if gross pay is greater than 1,000, then tax rate is 20%. And if that is not the case, let's talk about those who are at 800 and above, 800 to 1,000. We say if gross pay is greater than 800, then tax rate should be 15%. If then anything lower than this, that's what we bring in the else. We say tax rate should be 10%. We end if. Now you've seen how the if then, else if, and else statement flows based on condition. For the bonus and remark, we're going to use score, but not if else if. Let's use select case. Right. Call select case. Then the column which we're going to take the conditions score. Case is greater than or equal to 90. That is when score is greater than or equal to 90, then we should assign a bonus of 150, let's say, and a remark, we say remark excellent. The next case, greater than or equal to 80. When the score is greater than or equal to 80, we give a bonus of 100. The remark, we say very good. Next case is greater than or equal to 70. Then bonus of 70, right? No, bonus of 50. And remark good. And the next case is the score is greater than or equal to 60, and the bonus should be 20. Remark, let's say fair. And the last case here would be case else. Have case else, the remark, no, bonus, this is for people that get 0. And the remark, we say is improvement of whatever suits the situation. And then we can end select. Before we calculate the net pay, in fact, let's change these to output. Now let's write the bonus in the cell we want it to appear. All cells. The row counter, the bonus is in, let's go to the table, bonus, column 7. Dot value, bonus. Then we can now calculate net pay. And net pay is gross pay plus bonus minus the product of gross pay and tax rate. Now let's set this into each corresponding cell. So we'll call cell. This is found in column 8, dot value. Let's use the round method to round the net pay to 2 decimal places. 2. Close this. Right. And then set the remarks. Cells, row counter. This is in column 9. The value is remarks. Optionally, we can highlight top performance, right? Or high performance. Let's go with if score is greater than or equal to 90, then let's just format it, say rows with the particular row we're looking at, the interior color. Then we use RGB. We want to see more of green. Let's just go with 220, 255, and 220. And if, right. And lastly, we go over here and say continue loop, continue loop. Then we give the command for next iteration, next I, and end with. Go through your code, correct structures, check for omissions, and let's run and see what we have. You would want the system to run each time you update, right? You can either go back to write a macro, or you use a button, or you use Alt F8 each time you enter a new data. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, share the video, and leave a comment.